So this video is going to be about tube testers. Now this amplifier is it's a Tweed Deluxe 5E3. I built it about a year ago, and I saw the guy that owns it and a few weeks back, and he said he was having troubles with it. So I brought it home and checked it out, and one of the new tubes that I'd put into this thing a year ago was bad. And so I'm going to go through that and what I found. So the 5E3 uses the 6V6, and it uses two of them. It's a push-pull amplifier. So I had this amplifier up on my bench, and I was testing the bias, and I noticed that one of the output tubes, was drawn about 25 milliamps, and the other one was drawn 36. So I swapped the tubes, and because you don't know if you've got something wrong with that circuit on that particular socket, and the problem followed the tube. So I knew then and there that I had a tube that was quite underperforming by quite a bit, and more than likely a bad tube. So this is the data sheet for that particular tube, and I want you to notice here that word, transconductance. And that is one of the important features of the tube. It's not something that gets talked about a lot, but that is an important feature to be able to test for, because that's actually tells you how well that tube is working. It shows right up when you're checking your bias and looking at milliamps. That is a direct correlation. So this is a local electronics store that I use, and they actually have a functioning tube tester here. And it's what I've been using to test different tubes that I'm involved in amplifiers I'm working on. So I'm going to put the tube that I claim is bad, at least what I found in my own on my own test bench, and we're going to test it on this tester. So it takes a second for it to warm up, and you got to make sure they're seated really good because this is an old tester. So as you watch the needle go up, it's well into the good range. So this tube tester is saying that this tube that actually I know is not good, but it's saying it's good. So, what would it normally, a guy would say, okay, well, I don't have a problem with the tube. Let's go and put it back in the amp and keep trying to figure out what else might be wrong with the amp. So I'm just going to plug in a 6V6 that I know is good. It's an older one, but I know it's a good tube. And we'll test it and see what this tester says about this tube. And it takes a minute to warm up. There it goes. So it says this one's good too. Says it's a little better, goes up a little higher, but basically I'll tell you in a little bit what this is actually measuring. So, I leave there thinking I've got two pretty good tubes, go back, and I still have problems with this amp. It's not working right. So now we'll put it on my tube tester that I recently bought, and I bought this because it is a mutual conductance tube tester, which is, we'll explain the difference here in a bit. It is an old tube tester, but everything works just fine. And I'm going to test those same two tubes. You can see here the socket is already marked 6V6. Those are fairly common tubes back when this tube tester was actually built. So we're going to go ahead and test that tube that I claimed was bad and the other tester said was good. And we're going to test it on the mutual conductance tester. Give it a minute to warm up. Obviously, this tester works a little bit differently. It did come with a book that lists all the tubes that you want to test and tells you how to hook them up and all that. So you can see right away this just says nope. This is not a good tube. And so you can see that the other tester said it was good. This one says it's not. And we'll go ahead and put that other tube that I know is good, and we are going to test it so you can see the difference. If you remember, the other checker said both of them were good. Well, so far that one's no good, but just to make sure we're not dealing with a bad tube tester here, we'll plug in a good 6v6 that I know is good and go ahead and test it. Again, we'll wait for it to warm up a bit. And we'll flick the test switch. Apparently it's still warming up. So just keep watching the needle, and you'll see as it goes up and up and up, you're going to see it get close to that 4,000. Now remember, the transconductance for a new 6v6 is 4,700. So you see this closing in on that 4,000 micromos mark, and it's right up there close to it, which means this is a pretty good tube. It's not new, but it's still good. So I'm going to look on Wikipedia here. Yeah, I know, Wikipedia. But this is actually a fairly good explanation of the different types of tube testers. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. For a new 6v6, it talks about modern tube testers, which we don't have. We don't have a laboratory. Filament continuity tester, a multimeter will do that. There's a tube checker they show here. I don't know what that is. But then the emission tester. Now, I'm fairly certain that the tube tester that we used in the local electronics shop was an emission tester. It's just telling you how well the cathode is spitting out electrons, and that's about it. So as it describes here, it says, they do not measure key characteristics of the tubes like transconductance. And then it goes on and it lists a couple of more of the drawbacks to using it. And then it goes to this line here where it says the disadvantage of the emission tester is that it can test a good tube is bad and a bad tube is good. I think we just saw that. So the tester I have is actually called, well, you saw it, it's a mutual conductance tester. Now, it does test the emissions, but it also tells you how well it's processing what's coming off of that cathode. It tells you how well it's amplifying. And it's very similar to when you're running a bias test and you're looking at the milliamp readings on the plate. They're both telling you pretty much the same thing. In fact, transconductance can be calculated from the plate. This will also help you matching tubes in a push-pull if you've got a box of old tubes. So if you're in the market for a tube tester and you do kind of the same thing I'm doing here, I would highly recommend you look for a mutual conductance tester and avoid running into the situation that I ran into. This is a B&K. Hickok makes some really nice ones, but you're going to pay if you find one of those. Anyway, thanks for watching.